Coolidge City Council, May 11, 2015 to order, and please ask that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Here.
And Mayor John Thompson.
Here. Thank you. This is strange. There's nothing. We're going to move right into call of the public. So on call of the public, I would ask if you have to address the council, you have 3 to 5 minutes. Please step to the podium and state your name and your address, if you will, and let us know that we cannot respond to you, but you can tell us what you need to tell us. Go ahead. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Joyce Baker. I'm the manager of the Coolidge Public Library. And we are just 12 days away from the biggest event we've ever offered in Coolidge as a library, and that is the Coolidge Mini-Con. I want to remind you all to come to the Youth Center at 660 South Main at 1 o'clock. Maybe some of you would like to come early and help us with setup. We have costumed comic characters that are coming from Phoenix. We will have the Phoenix Avengers, the Arizona Justice League. Sorry, I'm not real good with my comic book characters. And the Phoenix Comic-Con will be there. In addition to almost every department in the city, will be hosting tables, information booths, opportunity to sign up for the summer reading program. But this is really a family event. This is a time to bring your children, bring your grandchildren out to the youth center and just have a good afternoon. It's all free. We'll have a photo booth. We're having a costume contest. We do ask you to sign up for that in advance. But I just want to welcome you to come to the youth center and have a great afternoon of fun. Thank you.
Joyce, what was the date on that?
That is Saturday, May 23rd, 1 to 5.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have any comments to make and call the public? Seeing nobody approach, I will move on to a public hearing. Item number 3 on the agenda. To receive public comments regarding the potential frontage 87 annexation, those portions of section 15, 22, and 27, Township 7 South, Range 8 East of the Gila and Salt River Base and Meridian, Pinal County, Arizona, lying west of the westerly right-of-way of the Union Pacific Railroad, except the south 50 feet of said section 27, and except any portion already within the city limits, compromising an area of 454 acres, more or less. And this is a public hearing. Okay, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. As you mentioned, this is a public hearing tonight. No action by the council, but this is the opportunity for people that are within the annexation area that we notified by mail to come and ask questions about the annexation. If we can't answer some of those, we'll be certain to get their names and try our best to answer questions related to this annexation if we don't have those answers this evening. First of all, just a little history here. As you know, the Mayor and Council recently approved the Pinal land holdings, the Pinal Mesa annexation, which encompassed about 13 square miles. Not long ago, that annexation became effective. It wasn't long after the annexation became effective that we received a phone call from a property owner within this particular annexation area. He's the largest property owner within this area that's depicted in your material there. and he owns 177 acres of the total. He asked why his property wasn't considered in the earlier annexation, and I explained to him that we were at that point trying to limit the number of property owners to give it the best chance of success, and we really didn't know that he had that interest, and that's why we didn't include him in the drawing of that boundary. But we did tell him, since that annexation has now become effective and his property is contiguous to this annexation boundary, that we could hold another public hearing. So he provided us a letter of intent to have his property annexed. He wants us to go through this process. And rather than just look at his property along the Highway 87 frontage, staff looked at the exhibit, the map before you, and felt that we should probably try to fill in the blank between Arizona Boulevard, Highway 87, and the Union Pacific Railroad, adjacent to the property that we've already annexed. So you can see on your on the map here, basically we're talking about the frontage, as Tim is showing here, along those three sections of property, section 15, 22, and 27, lying between the railroad and Highway 87. Why is that annexation important for the city of Coolidge? Again, like the other annexation, this is a future employment corridor for the city. We mentioned in prior hearings that southern boundary of the annexation area is less than 4.5 miles from Interstate 10. And when it comes to trying to recruit industrial prospects that look for the proximity to the interstate, this is key. Generally, those prospects don't want to be more than 5 miles or so from off of an interstate before they'll even consider entertaining a site. So this does put that property as well within that area. Also, the Highway 87 frontage. This property has direct frontage on an improved roadway, where the other property, while there's a lot of great plans and ideas, it sits on the east side of the railroad tracks, and there's not a lot of improved access currently to that property. But over time, with the proposed north-south freeway alignment that will come up along the eastern boundary of our recent annexation, and with this property being along the highway frontage, with the rail to the rear of the property, provides a great opportunity for industrial development and job creation in this area. We don't have a lot of infrastructure there right now in the way of sewer, water services, and those things. But a lot of these industrial users don't necessarily require that kind of infrastructure, especially if you're talking about the logistics, the warehousing. Generally, they can get by with perhaps their own package plant, even septic for that matter. But at this point, we're really just entertaining the desires of one property owner. Since the annexation letters went out, we've received phone calls from 3 other property owners that have expressed support. If you look at your exhibit, on the map here, everything in green represents the property owners that have expressed a desire to be annexed, and there are 4 of those property owners. The second largest property in the annexation area is the one depicted in purple on the exhibit, and that property owner has not quite decided yet whether he's in favor of the annexation. He has not said he's opposed. And then the balance of the property owners we've not heard from yet. So our plan would be to engage those property owners to evaluate their support. We, in all likelihood, will probably drop off the property on the very south end of this annexation area. There's a home on that property. I think we'll cut that one out of the annexation. And primarily annex vacant land at this point in time. If there is a decision on the part of the 2 north properties, if one or the other of those 2 decide that they don't want to be annexed, we probably should exclude those 2 as well, and then only annex the other remaining properties. With that said, the Arizona revised statutes requires us to hold this public hearing sometime within the last 10 days of a 30-day waiting period when we recorded the blank petition. Tim Hansen in our office recorded that blank petition on April the 13th, and tonight's hearing is the last 10 days within the last 10 days of the 30-day waiting period before we can effectively start collecting annexation signatures. If we're successful, and it looks like we could be, we can always downsize this annexation area to exclude property owners. We can't increase the area. So at a very minimum, we could annex the people that want to be annexed. If there are some that don't want to be, we could exclude them, or we could include them, because this is a very, I mean, when it comes to annexation statutes, it requires the majority of the property owners. So if you wanted to include some that aren't, because it has a strategic, it's a strategic asset to the city of Coolidge, in the future, then you could force some people to be annexed, even though perhaps they are reluctant to have that happen right now. Requires the majority of property owners owning the majority of value within the annexation area to make it happen, however. And I will keep at least one of the council members informed if somebody is not excited about the annexation, right? Councilmember Huddleston?
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have about this. And of course, it is a public hearing, opening it up to anybody that would like to ask questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions up here? Okay, anybody in the public have anything they want to say? If they do, please step up. It's a public hearing. Not seeing anybody make a move. I guess.
So at this point, we just close the public hearing.
Oh, okay. Well, please step forward, sir.
I'd just like to know a little bit more about why this is being done. I'm the Purple property owner.
Oh, well, welcome, Mr. Miller.
Can I answer that for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're the property owner that may have called and spoke with Tim, or one was unsure. What was your name?
Art Jones.
Art Jones. Okay, maybe that was. Yeah, I remember talking to you, Mr. Jones. This particular annexation was requested by the larger of the property owners within this area, Mr. Ted Nash. And the reason that, as I spoke previously, is that this area is. He's requesting the annexation because he believes that with the property inside the city limits, with the future plans that the Pinal Land Holdings Group has for this property, which is on the east side of the railroad, they have plans to put an inland port on that property as well as an industrial park. He believes that having it inside the city limits will provide greater development opportunities to the landowners in the area, and so that's probably his biggest reason. It's really why we want to, because as this area develops into the city, those jobs, the construction sales tax, the employment, the city derives some benefits from that, as well as the development in the way of city services. Those services are extended in the future.
Can I know who this person is who's supposed to be developing this?
Well, the individual that approached the city to request the annexation, his name is Ted Nash,
I have that.
and I gave you that.
Who's the one who's supposed to be developing?
The property that we annexed previously, which is on the other side of the railroad tracks, that property owner group is the Pinal Land Holdings, and the principal of Pinal Land Holdings is Jakob Anderson. And I'd be happy to get you their names and contact numbers tomorrow if you'd call me at my office, so I'd be happy to give it to you. Okay? This would be televised.
Didn't we have an inland port and intermodal that was always going to be done down there once already?
I'm not aware of any.
I don't know.
I've
With
been
a
on the
company
council.
out of Denver by the name of Bill, whose CEO is Bill Shuck.
I don't know how long ago it was, but
Been a while.
yeah, we've been on the council 13 and 14
It may
years.
have gone to staff and it never rose up to the council level for us to vote on it. But I know they're, as far as I know,
I've never heard of it.
We've been here together for close to
13, 14 years.
And I think I can answer that. I do recall that. I know when I was working as a consultant in Eloy, I had heard a lot about Shuck Corporation that was proposing to do a large rail-served industrial park in the area. I don't know if they were talking about an inland port type of development like the other group is talking, but they were talking a large resident or a large railroad-served industrial park. I will tell you that Mr. Jakob Anderson with Pinal Land Holdings has already been working with the Union Pacific Railroad, has all the engineering in place, has preliminary plans, conceptual plans to develop that project, and has a proven track record in the development of these types of industrial parks. He's done them in Casa Grande, a rail-served industrial park there that's quite successful. They recently landed the
Tractor Supply.
what's it called?
Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply Company, I'm just drawing a blank. Tractor Supply Company warehouse distribution facility over in Casa Grande. I've been in touch with Mr. Jakob Anderson, working with him from an economic development standpoint. We're going to be trying to complete these project information forms that are distributed through the Arizona Commerce Authority and other groups to try to land these types of prospects in this area. As this area develops, certainly that would probably be beneficial to your property as we see more of this activity in the area.
I think you mentioned that the freeway was going down the east side of the property. How do you know that?
Well, there's been a lot of study and discussion about the proposed north-south freeway corridor. That discussion has been going on through the Arizona Department of Transportation, Federal Highways, and other groups, and we've been very involved in those discussions, and they've been establishing a series of preferred alignments connecting I-10 down by Picacho to US 60 up by Apache Junction. They're beginning to close in on the preferred alignment. Through this area, there is one preferred alignment that has survived all of those discussions, and that would be the Vale Road alignment, which is actually 1 mile to the east of Highway 87. It's not right on the east of your property or the railroad. It would be Vale Road, which is basically on the east side of the sections on the other side, the east of the railroad tracks. That north-south freeway is a long ways probably from happening, but they are going through this process. They've got environmental studies that they're continuing to work on. This mayor and council has expressed in a resolution of support the preferred alignment through this area, as well as the city of Florence, and I believe the city of Eloy recently did something on that as well. Their alignment is a little different than what our alignment is in terms of preference, but through this particular part of the planning area would be Vale Road.
The last I saw, it was still 2 alignments. When did this change? There was 2 alignments on the last maps that I saw.
Well, I think the other alignment that has been considered still is Highway 87. That is not a preference of this mayor and council. The resolution of support that we have clearly spelled out to the study team is Vale Road. 87, the problem with Highway 87 is this. If you come up Highway 87 with the freeway, like they're talking about, there's limited access, and you have a significant structure that would have to cross over the freeway in its current alignment, 87, and then you'd have to cross over the railroad, which is only, probably 1,000 feet or 1,200 feet apart. Going over those 2 facilities would be a significant accomplishment in terms of cost.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak to this subject? Hearing none, then I guess we need to close this public hearing. It's closed. Item number 4, to receive public comments regarding the potential CDBG projects for FY 2015 for the regional account and state special projects account. This too is a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening, we do have the public hearing for CDBG funds for fiscal year 2015. We do participate through the Arizona Department of Housing Small Cities Program. This year's allocation of CDBG funds is $132,417. After our educational session that we held a couple of months ago on CDBG, staff did go look at the potential projects that were out there. We are talking about our regional account for $132 and a potential state special project application for a maximum not to exceed $300,000. Looking at the possible projects that were on the list, there was housing rehabilitation, removal of architectural barriers, street projects, vacant lot community cleanup, exterior commercial rehabilitation, facade improvements, voluntary demolition and cleanup. If you look at the worksheets that were provided regarding projects, potential projects were narrowed down to housing rehabilitation and architectural barrier removal. Projects that were eliminated as not eligible to proceed at this time were the street projects. Unfortunately, those projects were identified to exceed the $132,000 in regional funds. The vacant lot community cleanup, service area and a project area had not been identified that was cooperating or willing to participate. Commercial rehab, we do have 2 businesses still on the commercial rehab waiting list. At this point, they do not qualify as low-income business owners. I know that sounds very strange, but in order to use CDBG funds, you must focus to benefit low-income individuals. Voluntary demolition and clearance, the voluntary is the key. When the city provided CDBG funds for demolition and clearance in the past, the owners did not voluntarily agree for their property to be demolished. So if you don't have people volunteer, you can't use the funding. And again, the individuals who are assisted must be documented to be low income, according to the state's guidelines. So under the regional account, we are recommending, and we did publish the public hearing notice for housing rehabilitation. We can continue to work with Public Works, and as they are identifying segments of road that are in low-income census tracts in the city of Coolidge, that we could perform the survey and do the cost estimates and hopefully secure enough money from CDBG funds and or have the city allocate capital resources to cover the cost to do a project in full. If the city wants to proceed with a project that exceeds the CDBG allocation at the time of the application, council must commit the funding for that project to go forward. When you start a CDBG project, it's probably 12 to 18 months before you have the funding available because of the contract time and the environmental review steps. Moving on to the special project account, that is a competitive funding allocation that we are available to apply for. As I said, the maximum dollars are $300,000. Again, the project must be on the shelf and ready to go and have an environmental review completed by the time of the application. So staff is suggesting we apply for housing rehabilitation funds. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may be, and of course this is a public hearing and would like to give the opportunity for the public to comment as well.
Thank you, Joe. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. On the, just so if people are wondering, because we talked about streets and how important they are and everything, the one thing that I know about the federal funds is that you cannot use it for maintenance. It has to be reconstruction, and that's where the cost gets up. And then because it's a public works project, it has to be Davis-Bacon, which then is a competitive wage, so rehab is exempt from that. So we don't have to do that with rehab. But with the street, you would. So the cost goes up automatically about 20%, and so it's more expensive. And then once you have a federal dollar in it, the whole project gets a little more expensive, even though it's good if you have enough money. So is that correct? Or?
Mayor, Councilmember Lopez, that is absolutely correct. Maintenance is not an activity that you can use CDBG funds for. However, I did get some clarification from the state. Our program where we're zipping the road up completely, putting it back down as a base and coming it back with a double chip seal on top of it could qualify for assistance, which is a change in explanation that they've had in years past. In years past, it was full pavement with gutters and sidewalk. Because of the rural nature of our community, and that is common on our roads, that they would accept that. But if we are not proposing to zip and we're only doing a one chip layer, that is considered maintenance. It is not an eligible activity. So it is very important to know the different components and the federal overlay statutes that come into play. And Davis-Bacon is a cost factor that you'd have to factor in as well. So thank you very much.
And Mayor, I just wanted to bring that up in case everybody thought, well, why don't we just put it in roads? Because that's the first thing that came to my mind. I thought, we can't because of the restrictions. So
Well, and for the amount that we get now, we wouldn't get much of a road by the time you take out the administrative portion we're not going to get much for 100,000, I don't think, are we?
Mayor, that is correct. It is very limited at 132,000. I mean, the city, if it did go out to bid, could lower its administration. We do receive administrative funds, so the city does not have to bear any cost for the implementation of this grant. A street project that goes out to bid, maybe you could get administration down to about 20,000 and have about 110 for a road segment, but that's not going to get very far on a road segment.
And Mayor, the environmental for that would probably slow us way down with the way we've been with the state. I'm going through that right now at work, and it's with the county, man, it's terrible. Anyway,
The environmental process has been clarified quite recently, and the mayor's had to go through a couple of steps recently with signing environmental documents for me, so it's quite cumbersome.
They're very concerned about our well-being.
the owls, it's about the owls.
Okay, does anybody have any comment up here? No? Anybody in the public? This is a public hearing. If you have any comments regarding this, please step forward. Okay. I don't see anybody. I'm going to get out of this public hearing and go into the next item on the agenda, which is business items for consent. I'm going to read all these off. There's a couple of resolutions, so we'll have to vote. I would ask any members of the council at this time if there's any item you want pulled off and dealt with separately.
I think they all have discussion, actually.
Hearing none, I'm going to commence to reading. Item number 5, resolution number 15-15. A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing the adoption of the owner-occupied housing rehabilitation guidelines dated November 2013 in relation to applications for FY 2015 State Community Development Block Grant Funds for a Housing Rehabilitation Program. Item number 6, resolution number 15-16, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing the submission of an application for FY 2015 State Community Development Block Grant Funds for housing rehabilitation, regional account projects, certifying that said application meets the community's previously identified housing and community development needs and the requirements of the state CDBG program, and authorizing all actions necessary to implement and complete the activities outlined in said applications. Item 7, consider approval of acquiring 31 temporary construction easements, TCEs, for the construction of sidewalks and curb and gutter improvement during the Central Avenue reconstruction project between Main Street and Arizona Boulevard, authorizing the mayor to execute the necessary documents. And item number 8, ratification of the municipal property corporate MPC officers for FY 2015-2016. Okay, I think we will, no, we're going to have to vote.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Need a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 5 through 8 as read.
Second it.
Motion a second, all in favor?
Roll call, Mr. Mayor.
Well, let's just, yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Yes.
And Mayor John Thompson.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to business under regular items. Item number 9, authorize staff to proceed with a program development for traffic calming utilization Central Avenue from 9th Street to Arizona Boulevard as the example project and bringing results back to the City Council for action. That's Susanna. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. Bringing this back from when it was tabled last council meeting. We have, just to give you a little bit of an update, I have managed to borrow 2 extra counters from the county at this point in time for us to use on the study for the looking at the 4-way stop on this project. I am still, however, I gave you guys a bunch of reading material on this. My concern really comes down to the fact that we have put up probably on all of our intersections in the downtown area, 40% of our intersections have stop signs on them right now. We're starting to ask for more stop signs. We're starting to ask for speed bumps. We're just continuing to add more and more and more to the streets as far as you know, how do we control speed? And when you look at the studies all across the board in the nation, it's not just a traffic control device. It's not just enforcement. It's also some education that goes with that. And what I see within the study and the research that I've done so far is that we have not spent a lot of time in that education piece. We have done spot enforcement, but not added to it necessarily engineering to it. We have also not maybe added some education to the process as well. And with the continual request for how do we deal with this speed, I think it would be really nice for the community to take some time to step back and say, well, how do we really want to approach this? What kind of speed bumps do we want if we're going to put those in? Are there other methods that we can potentially lower the speeds on some of our streets, such as narrowing those roadways, which I know that also brings some contention and some conflict as well. And I really am asking at this point in time that we utilize this request from this citizenship, because it is a very unique situation in the fact that it is one of 3 roads within our urbanized area of the older parts of town that has a crossing on the railroad tracks that goes across the railroad tracks. It goes across the boulevard. It has a street light, traffic signal on it. And it's in a neighborhood where other areas have had a lot of different stop sign controls. And it is a street that I think is showing some effects of people being able to utilize it as a bypass, and indeed it is actually in our transportation plan a street that is supposed to carry more traffic than a normal residential roadway. So I have been working with a couple of different traffic engineers to say, what can we do to do that? They've kind of presented me with some of this information that I've shared with you on a program or a process to look at each of these, which includes getting some data, understanding kind of what's going on in these areas where these speeding is going on. It includes looking at some enforcement opportunities and doing some education in the neighborhoods and working with the neighborhood. So this request really at this point in time is to utilize the Central Avenue 7th Street as kind of a pilot project to say which of these programs do we think are going to work best for our community, and then spend the time kind of vetting those different ones and working with the community. And I know that $10,000 figure is still kind of in there for a cost. It's not going to be every one of them. We are going to learn from this as a community. We're going to learn as a staff as well to move forward with trying to say, how do we deal with this? Is this truly something that we just have our police officers dealing with? Is it something we can add some of this engineering to? Is it, how much neighborhood involvement should we do to basically decide mechanisms and methods to which we can maybe start calming some of the traffic in the area? So what I have before you tonight is that request still to develop that program, utilizing this as that pilot project, and doing it for less than $10,000. So.
Okay, Jill, the only thing I would, Suzanne, I'm sorry. The only thing I would, I'd ask is, do you have any idea of what a timeline? I mean, I know it's hard to guess, but we already have a lot of the information. And in reading through the novel you gave us, I mean, it does look like a lot of it boils down to neighborhood input, and there are a lot of options, and there's a lot of things that can happen. The one thing I did notice about these are a lot of these are pretty old studies. I mean, if you look in the bibliography, I mean, they're 1970, 97, 2005, and so maybe nobody's had traffic problems since then. I don't know, or maybe it's the same problem. But do you have any idea? Because that's the first thing I would ask if I was sitting in the audience. And, you know, does it look like it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? Do we have any idea?
With your approval tonight, I will try and get those counters set before the school actually gets out. The traffic engineers have indicated for me to do that on a Tuesday through a Thursday because we don't have those set right now. It'll probably end up being set, and I'm going to try and set those for Friday through a Friday of next week is what the intent is, so that we can kind of look at that, and we will set them on Central as well as 7th Street. We will get that data then back within that week. The consultant will look at that and come up with some potential input on what he's seeing there and some recommendations. I expect to see that within 2 to 3 weeks. I'd like to meet with the property owners right after I find that data. So I think at that point in time we would, you know, I'm going to say at the very most 3 months. We should have a good feel, though, that if that traffic analysis shows that the four-way is warranted, we can bring that back to you right away. Because if that warrant is met, I think then it's, you know, a reasonable request, and we can go ahead and put that in there. But I want to continue with this aspect of getting that program put together. So it could be anywhere from a month if the four-way warrants are met, all the way up to maybe 3 months at the max.
Okay, thank you. That's important to know, and like I say, it's become apparent that this isn't going to be the first or the last time these are going to happen. So I think it's a good idea for the city to be able to do it and have a blueprint to follow, which you're trying to do now. So I think it's a good idea. So,
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't have any further comments. Does anybody got anything?
No, Mayor, I just think that, you know, it looks like we're going to have problems or issues, and we need some type of a guideline, a policy and procedure to go by. And if this is what we have to do to get those policy and procedures and guidelines to move forward on something else, I think we probably ought to do it.
Since your team's going to be learning a lot from this, do you know, is there state and federal regulations and certifications that you will have to go through that will cost extra in the future to be certified?
You know, the only thing that I'm seeing is that when we go to that four-way look that we have to look at, there is a traffic turning count that needs to happen. The estimate on that is about $250 to bring somebody in on one day to just kind of sit at that intersection and do those counts. So there may be some costs that would be associated with that. As long as the county can continue to let us borrow their second set of counters when it comes to the four-way, which we won't always need to use the four-way. We can sometimes do that just with, if we're not looking at a four-way stop situation, we only need 2 counters, we don't need the 4. So if the county will continue to let us borrow that, we won't have to worry about that. If that becomes burdensome, we can buy 2 more counters at a cost of about $2,500. I have checked into that. It's about maybe $2,600 by the time you get to tax and some of the road tubes. So we are, you know, we have looked into that. So, I really think that we can do the majority of this on our own for the local roadways. If we start looking at Arizona Boulevard, we start looking at maybe some of the principal arterials, such as Vakian and Martin, that we may have to go back and utilize a consultant again. This is really more of a local neighborhood program. I am hoping that in the safety study that is being done through the Sun Corridor MPO, that they will be looking more at our arterial roadways and our principal arterials and talking kind of about some safety programs and projects that we can do for some of those higher end roads. So hate to be long, but trying to wanted to cover all those bases.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody? Go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Just for clarification, so are we looking to hire another agency to do the study and then kind of piggyback on and learn it, or are we doing it and just referring with someone to kind of manage what we're doing and let us know what we're doing?
What we will be hiring is a consultant to help us with this program. We will be setting counters at his direction or their direction, basically saying, here's the best place to put those. And, you know, as a point in example is that within 150 feet of any stop sign, typically a vehicle can get up to speed. So we have to make sure that we're setting it 150 feet away, but then I also want to ask questions about, well, if I get to that 200 mark or 250 and I start getting closer to another intersection, we'll be allowed to or be able to ask from a traffic engineer, some of those specifics so that we can better prepare ourselves for those.
Okay, and then the information you provided us last time was that the main issue in that neighborhood was the speed, correct?
It is appearing that there is some speed issues, although I think also the amount of traffic is also becoming a concern.
Okay, because based on what we read and heard last time, the main thing was the speed, and you provided information to us that it was very clear that stop signs cannot be used for a speed control device.
Correct.
So it sounds like we're going forward trying to figure out how to put the stop signs up there, but we can't do that to control the speed. And now all of a sudden it's the traffic amount, not the speed.
All right, let me clarify. One of the potential issues is that four-way stop sign there, that we can potentially put that in that will help with the deterrent of people coming down that street. So at that point in time, we're now basically reducing the amount of traffic, not necessarily the speed. But there are certain warrants that need to be met. Some of those have to do with crashes. Some of those have to do with, do we have the equal amount of people coming to that intersection? And that's kind of what that study is showing us what to do. So, it's kind of a cross blend between the two of them is what we're looking at, although this other program will help us address maybe some larger options for speed than just stop signs. And you're right, stop signs only allow us to do right-of-way type issues, or who has the right-of-way, but they do also deter the amounts of traffic. So,
And if the objective is to deter traffic from traveling down that road, where do we expect them to go? Because right now they're using it to avoid the schools. So we do want to increase vehicle traffic where the schools are and potentially have a hazard there? Because if they're going to drive fast in a residential neighborhood, they're going to drive fast in the school area.
And that is one reason that I'm picking this as a pilot study, is because I want to really pick the the traffic engineer's brain. We do have schools north of here. We have a school south of here. We have 15 mile per hour on either side, yet this is a through street. If we do something that's going to keep traffic from going through this street, what effect may it potentially have on another? And so in addition to the fact that we get the data on how much traffic and how fast that traffic is going, I also intend to utilize that consultant to say, let's look at the traffic patterns in the neighborhood as far as how the stop signs are right now. We may get away with just turning a couple of those stop signs in a different way to where we don't just take everything off of Central Avenue and put it on Roosevelt or put it on Pima. So those are all things that we want to be able to look at with this consultant.
And are the stop signs the only concerns, or are we also looking at a potential to lower the speed limit there, or is it just a stop sign issue?
Well, we'll look at this lowering the speed limit as well. I think we're going to have a harder time looking at the speed limits, but that will be another thing that we can look at. State statute really says that we should not put anything lower than a 25 mile an hour on a residential roadway unless we do a study to justify it. 15 mile per hour roadways are really supposed to be set up for school zones only. Yet I do know that we have some other 15 mile per hours in town where, again, all my research has shown I don't know why we're doing some of these things. And so I'd like to rather, instead of just we'll set this up because somebody requested it, we start having some standardization and some logic to what we're doing. So I do think that the speed control is something that we do. The mechanism of a speed hump, or what do they call it, a road hump or a road table, are things that can calm in a neighborhood, so it can basically show that the traffic should be slowing or deterring. And again, those are all things that I really do think this study is going to help us kind of answer more questions as we move forward.
And is the police department involved in this process?
Absolutely. In fact, I shared all of this information with the chief of police and said, what do you think? And he said, by all means, and he's ready to give out the radar guns on the one program as well, so to some of our citizens, and train them how to do that to gather information for us as well.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes, sir.
a quick comment. A while back, we had a young person cited for speeding on one of our roads, and when he came to court, he had his father with him, who was an attorney, who immediately demanded the speed study that was done, to justify the speed limit. So, as Susanna says, there is a liability issue involved, and fortunately, we had a speed study on that section of road, so we could justify the speed limit.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'd look for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve item agenda 19 as read.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to item number 10, resolution number 15-17. A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into Amendment 2 to Intergovernmental Agreement IGA/JPA, file number 11-1560 or 156I, between the State of Arizona Department of Transportation and the City of Coolidge for the Central Avenue reconstruction. Suzanne?
Thank you. Exciting news at this point in time. Central Avenue is nearing completion of the design. As we neared through that, we have to provide cost estimates. The cost estimate came in higher than what we expected to have happen there. We were lucky to go there in front of the Sun Quarter MPO. They had some excess money that we could draw upon to kind of make the budget whole so that we could do all the construction on Central Avenue from Main Street to 87 based upon the way the plans are moving forward. And so this IGA in front of you is to amend our current contract that we have with ADOT to add that additional $280,000 so that we can, complete the construction on the project without taking out any of the aspects that we've already put into it or shorten the job. So that's the exciting thing about it. I know tonight you also had one of your agenda items on the consent agenda to go after the temporary construction easements. We are proceeding with those at this point in time. If this all works, where we get this money put in place, as well as the TCEs in time and all the rest of the clearances, which we have gotten SHPO clearance already, which is cool, we can go to bid on this job in July, with an expectation of potentially going as early to construction as October, November, completion in May of next year. However, that kind of starts walking over some of our events that we have on Central Avenue as far as parades go. We also have some concerns by some of our businesses along there, so we have an opportunity to move that forward. I did learn today that with the approval of this IGA, we really do have the money in place to at least obligate the funds so that we can then choose when we want to go to bid. So the request is to approve this amendment.
Suzanne, that was one of the complaints the guys on Coolidge had, was we hit them in the winter and it hurt their business.
Correct.
But we also have time guidelines that if we don't do something, we lose the funding.
Correct.
So we're going to have to find something we can all agree with. But on these giant projects, you never know. There may be something happen that we don't even know about right now. Anybody have any questions over here?
No.
Over here? Well, in hearing none, then I would ask for a motion.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 15-17 as presented.
Okay, motion and a second.
Okay, Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Nay.
Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Yes.
And Mayor John Thompson.
Yes. Item number 11.
Thank you. And if I may, I hate to interrupt, but I do also have kind of a fact sheet that I'm holding out to the property owners. I'd love to share that with the council tonight, too, if I
Certainly.
can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fine, fine.
Thank you.
Like candy.
Your side. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Susanna. Item number 11, consider approval of the claims for the month of April 2015. Anybody have any concerns over the bills, invoices?
No, sir.
No, sir.
And hearing none, I would look for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to pay our bills.
Thank you. Is there a
The way to
second?
Gilbert.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we'll move into the report from the mayor, council, and our city manager.
Mayor, thank you. Just like a lot of the members here attended the police banquet the weekend on Saturday, and I want to congratulate again Detective Ashley Walker for being an Officer of the Year, and the other officers that received recognition. And it's amazing what they do for the public that people don't hear about, but saving lives and doing those really important things besides the everyday work they do, and they just don't get enough credit for what they do. So I just want to say thank you, and it was a pleasure and honor being there to support the police. Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
Tatiana?
I just echo Gilbert, and we have an amazing police department, and it was an honor to be invited and attending. Thank you.
Councilmember?
Yeah, I attended the final fly-in, which was my first fly-in 2 Saturdays ago, I think. It was amazing. My kids enjoyed it. They did a good job out there. The Lions Club's fantastic. Didn't run into very many people I knew. Councilmember Huddleston was there with us. I know his kids enjoyed it. My kids are already asking when they can go back. Unfortunately, we have to wait till October, which is good because it was getting kind of warm that day. The airport, we've had a lot of controversy with it, but I think it's a great place, and we need to do what we can to kind of progress with making it better. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it to the police officers' banquet on Saturday due to personal engagement up north, but I would like to extend gratitude for the work that Detective Walker does. She was made Officer of the Year, and I really think that she's a gem to the agency, and I don't think a lot of people really understand how blessed we are to have her. The work that she does, the kind of crime she investigates are things that most of us don't even want to know about. And based on my personal experience with the same stuff, she does a phenomenal job, and I don't know how she keeps doing it. So we're really blessed to have her. So I would like, to thank her again since I wasn't there. And that's it.
I too attended the banquet. It was very nice, and again, I'd like to congratulate all that got the awards. It was a very nice evening.
Thank you. Is it me or you?
You.
Yeah.
All right, Bob. And,
You want that?
go ahead.
All right. Yeah, we have Mayor, we have a Access Arizona meeting this Thursday, if you can go. Otherwise, I'll represent you. 11:45 in Casa Grande. Monday the 18th, and this is for everybody. This is an important meeting. It's a public meeting for the Sun Corridor MPO. It's on the Regional Transportation Plan, so it will be here in the council chambers from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, and they need your input. They need to have you see what the Regional Transportation Plan looks like and get your comments. So if you can put that on your calendar. It's Monday the 18th from 5:30 to 7. Then on Wednesday we have our chamber luncheon at the Coolidge Unified School District boardroom at noon. Wednesday the 20th in the evening we have the Imagine School promotion for 8th grade. And then the next day on the 21st we have the high school, Imagine School graduation at the Performing Arts Center again at 6 o'clock. And then the following week on Wednesday and Thursday we have Coolidge Unified School District, the junior high ceremony, as well as on a Thursday the 28th we have the Coolidge High School graduation on the football field. And lastly, as Joyce mentioned, we have a wonderful summer reading kickoff party at the Teen Center on Saturday, the 23rd, and that's between 1 and 5. That'll be a good opportunity for all of us. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bob. Like three of the other members of the council, I too attended the policeman's event Saturday night. It was a great event. They have a tough job, and they do an excellent job in this town. I don't think we would have the problems that we're witnessing on TV and other places in Coolidge. And I think that's due to the communication our officers have with our community. I would say that all the award recipients were well deserved. They all did quite a bit. It was pretty impressive to hear what some of them have done. The other thing I've done, I attended a conference, and it wasn't on the city's dime, the Arizona Community Action Association conference, where I learned quite a bit about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and what other cities our size are doing to get the economy going in a stagnant economy. So the city manager is not aware of it yet, but him and I will be going on a road trip in the near future to see what some of these places are doing, and if we can bring it back and implement it here to try to get things jump-started in our local economy. So, and that is all I have. I look for what?
Yeah, I didn't think about that afterwards. They've mentioned the graduations for the high schools and the junior high. Is the Youth Coalition doing a lock-in or something like that? Do we know of a date or something?
There is a grad night that CYC is involved in.
Do you know where?
But I don't know what night it is. I know they're going to the Rock and R.
At night, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not here in town?
Yeah, it'd be the same night.
Same night as
Should
graduation.
know, but you were at the meeting, what, 20th or something?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's not here in town?
No.
Okay.
The
I'll always
CYC
stop by.
sponsored grad night
Yeah.
will be the same night as graduation, which I believe Mr. Flatley gave us the date for the high school graduation.
28th. In the
28th. That will be same night as grad night then.
Yeah. But they're not doing it here in town, that's
No,
what I'm
it's at the
saying.
No.
Rock and R Ranch in Gilbert or wherever
Gilbert,
that
I
is.
I wanted to
believe.
stop by, but if it's not here, yeah.
All right, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, hearing nothing else, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're done. Thank you.